Welcome back to another Top 5 Tuesday on Sprague Homestead. Today we're going to talk about the top 5 things you need to look at when you go to buy bare land. So recently on another episode or another release, we talked about the 3 key things you've got to worry about in homesteading, which is food, water, and shelter. So those are going to be kind of the first 3 things we talk about of our top 5 on bare land. So let's talk about food first. Really, when it comes down to food on your property, most likely you're going to worry about soil. Now, soil can be either silty, sandy, rocky, clay-based. There's a lot of different variations you can look at when you're going to homestead. So one of the things to look for is the quality of your soil. I'll tell you from experience, driving fence posts through rocky soil is terrible. It's hard work and it really puts a strain on your body. Doing construction also in silty or sandy or even rocky soil can also be equally challenging. So always look at your soil of what you're going to do, and especially when it comes to gardening, it might be acidic, very basic, rocky, sandy. All of that stuff is going to provide its own challenge to trying to grow things, whether it's grass for your livestock or crops for you to eat. So keep an eye on the soil and then adjust accordingly. Now, item 2 that we'll talk about is water. Now, this is going to be water that you're going to consume on your homestead, whether you're going to drink it, shower with it, use it to wash dishes, or to water your livestock. How you get your water is going to be kind of different. You've either got like a utility that's going to provide water to the property, or you might have to put in a well or have some other natural water feature that provides water. Obviously, utility is going to be there if it's available. You just got to pay for the cost of it coming in, the infrastructure, and then the monthly fees. When it comes to natural water, something like a well that you're going to bring up from an aquifer or maybe a stream on your property that you're going to pump out of, it's going to provide its own unique challenges. Now, for a well, you can look online. Typically, you have maps you can find available that show you the approximate water depth to what you would find on your property or neighboring properties. They'll give you an idea of how deep you're going to have to go to get to that water. Now, the cost to put in a well and a pump and everything else, you'll probably have to call an actual well drilling company, and they can probably give you a ballpark range of what it would cost to put in a well, and then if they've drilled around anywhere in the property of what other places have for water. Now, the third thing to talk about for the top 3 things is going to be shelter. Obviously, bare land has no infrastructure like roads. It doesn't have any buildings probably. It doesn't have a home or any other stuff. So you're going to have to decide what you're going to build, what the building codes are for the property, whether it's residential or is it agricultural, forestry. I mean, there's a lot of different zonings and building codes based on where you're going to be. That's going to help define what you're going to need to build and how you can build it and where you can build it, because you might have a natural migration crossing across your property. So keep those in mind of the shelter piece of what you want to build is how much it's going to cost, your building codes and everything else. Now, outside of the shelter piece, you're going to have to worry about power. And this is going to be kind of a sub-base of the shelter. Power is a thing you're either probably going to be on-grid or off-grid, and then each of those has their own subcategories. So on-grid, you may have a utility that has power lines through your area that you would just pay to put in, basically a line into your property, or you're going to be off-grid, which could be solar, wind generation, diesel generator, or maybe something using a stream that turns a paddle into a generator, etc. So in our case, when we did our power, we obviously gone solar because you've seen all of our other stuff on solar. The reason we did that is 15 years ago when this house was first put in, the power company quoted about $125,000 to put in power from the utility coming into the property. Now the property is 3/4 of a mile from the main line, but that is high voltage. So you'd have to put in a transformer, bring in the lines down to the property, and then connect up. So for us to put in solar, it really made cost-effective sense, and then we didn't have a monthly fee, obviously, because we're not connected to the grid. Now, to keep in mind for off-grid, depending on what method you're going to use, if it's solar, you obviously want to have a clear area that gets plenty of sunlight facing south. If you're doing wind, you always want to have a continuous wind. Remember, it doesn't do great at bursts. It wants a steady breeze to be able to turn that turbine. And also, if you're going to use a natural water source like a river or a stream, creek, etc., you want to make sure that's constantly flowing versus just a couple times in a month or a year to where you're going to have to do a secondary power source. Now, concerning your property, we would always recommend going to look at a piece of property after it's rained, or it's in, if you have like a lot of snow, it's in the spring melt. The reason for that is you want to be concerned with drainage off the property. Now, when you're concerned with drainage, what you're really concerned with is the path that the water is going to cross your property if it's going to. For us here on Sprague River Homestead, we actually have two main sections on our 20 acres that has a little depression that Mother Nature has put in that helps drain the valley. One thing we didn't realize until last year was that our road that comes in all the way down the valley, it actually acts as a drain. So we've had to put in barge ditches off the road to help try and evacuate some of the water off to the left or the right. And what we found out last year is that the road brought water literally to the house, and we had standing water right outside the door. Thankfully, it did not come in the house, but ooh, was it close to draining right in. So, having not seen the property when it was wet and flowing water, we had to find out the hard way that we need to put in some extra drainage. Now, drainage is also crucial to, obviously, building sites where you're going to put a house, a shop, barns, etc., and also to your septic if you're putting in a septic system. You definitely don't want to put in your septic in a natural drainage area because it's going to have standing water and not allow your septic probably to drain out properly. So just things to keep in mind. Be cautious of where water flows and where it doesn't, because you want to build where it doesn't and not build yourself a lake to sleep on. And the last thing we'll probably talk about with bare land is the surroundings of the property. You may or may not have fencing to put in, but the surrounding itself is going to have natural predators a lot of times. Could have free-range cows that will gladly walk through and eat all your hay. And also, you might have to deal with people. So when you're walking the property, look for natural signs of scat from either predators or migrating animals. You might have elk, deer, moose, you name it, could have anything like that. But of course, if they're going through, they're probably going to leave evidence that they've been there. Same with free-range cows or any natural predators like coyotes, wolves, foxes, anything else. They will show you they've been there. You just have to look for the signs that they've left for you. And the last thing in that is people. A lot of times people want to move out of the city, move to a rural area, to homestead, or to just get kind of out of the hustle and bustle of the city life. You may or may not be the person moving into the neighborhood, or you may have neighbors moved in. Just be cautious of this, because people's lifestyles when they move out to the country honestly change. I've had a lot of neighbors over the years that have moved out to the country and have felt like it was their right to allow their animals to free run because they wanted to be born free. We've fought dogs across our property. We fought cats that showed up looking to dig through the trash, horses, cows, anything else, you name it. If you don't have fencing protecting your property, you're probably going to have somewhere a neighbor using your property as they're grazing or otherwise. So just be cautious of those. Those are the top 5 things we think you should look for. Food, water, shelter, everything to go with that. Drainage, power, and people. So with that, we'll end there. If you guys have questions on any of these that we've covered, we'll be glad to hear from you in the comments. Make sure you hit subscribe, check out everything we're doing, and keep an eye out for what we got coming up. I think you're going to like it. We'll see you next time.